Um, I've known Nirav since the late, let's say middle 1980s till now. Used to go out with him for about 4.5 years, so I knew the kind of the beginning part of his life here on Maui in a way. In fact, when I met him, he was at Susan Graham's land, living in a cabin there, taking care of their property. And I remember the first time I met him was at Lori Grace's at Shangri-La Haleakua. He was playing, music there, and I think I was in a Tantra group or was helping to put on some Tantra group. I was kind of like the programs manager, and somehow we got connected, and the next thing I know I was going out to visit him in this cabin out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm like, okay, where's the shower, and he directs me to this kind of like wooden thing he constructed with some kind of it was a car radiator. And he used to take the propane thing and he would light it, and it would light up the water somehow, and it would trickle through, and you would stand under that, but you had warm water, And then I remember, okay, first time out, where's the bathroom? It's the middle of the night, I gotta go pee, He said, well, here's the bucket, or you can go out to the outhouse, which meant the flashlight, getting out in the cold with the mosquitoes, etc., So I learned a lot about, being out on the land. And I remember during the first few weeks of us meeting, after about a first month, there was 2 hang-ups that we both had. One was that I was an Osho devotee, and he said that he thought that was going to get in our way. And then the other thing is that he liked cannabis, and I wasn't much with that. And so when he would go out in the land and he would work, sometimes he would use cannabis. So I thought, well, how are we going to resolve that? So we both said, let's just see what happens. And so his result, I said, because it would be different if I was with you and I was getting stoned with you at that moment, but usually we're in different directions. So for me, anyway, you're in one place and I'm with another, and that was my, thing. So I said, when you're by yourself, do whatever you want, that's the Osho way, when you're with me, let's make it that, we're on the same wavelength, either one way or the other. And so we agreed on that. And the next thing I know, he started to want to know about Osho a little bit, because what was I into, right? He had to figure out stuff. And so he started reading my Osho books and listening to my tapes. And finally, within about 6 months, he had read more Osho books than I ever thought of reading, or listened to more tapes. And I was on my way to Pune. And he was like, okay, goodbye. And I said, well, let's see what happens when we get back, and da-da-da-da-da. Good open relationship. And I get there, and about 3 weeks later or something, I get this email that he's on his way. Gonna come join me. And, I was gonna meet this person, Osho, and he fell in love, So that was how we kind of came to Osho. And what else can I tell you about Nirav? He was not only an author of the Organic Growing Guide, which he had just finished. Susan had actually hired him to write a pamphlet for her store that she had in Wailuku, or Kahului, I guess it was. And he wrote a book because, see, he was actually a cross between his 2 grandfathers. One grandfather was an orchard grower, and the other grandfather was a professor. So he became the synthesis of both of them. So he wrote the Organic Guide to Growing from Maui. Then he decided to, expand the version, and he wrote, and I said, well, why isn't this Maui? It must be the rest of the island. So he added on the cover, and Hawaii, or something like that. Or maybe the next one, the second one, was the Organic Guide to Growing for the Hawaiian Islands, and then I think we talked about, let's add subtropics. And then that had made him, was going to do the 3rd book, which he just kept putting more and more information together that he never finished it. And plus it was having too good a time in Thailand and, all these other places, I'm sure, And I said, well, maybe just break it down into a section and publish that, because he really wanted to get it out there. And but that wasn't meant to be. But what you don't know about him is before that he had written a book called Switchwords, and that he really loved words. For him, words meant something. And I think part of that was his upbringing. You know, his parents were much older than he was, and they were very much a couple. And then, as you said, you know, his sister was 16 years old and had left, and the other one was a girl, and she was 5 years older. So he was kind of left in a little world of his own. So he basically was kind of like the child that's in his little castle of his own that he's made. And, you know, he was a high school nerd because he was so smart. And he was taking things like home ec, you know, things to try out. You know, anything he could find out about, he would read about and try. You know, he wasn't this one that broke it down by male or female. You know, if he wanted to learn it, he wanted to learn it. And that was Nirav, you know. And what else? Oh, I remember he would always in those days wear white pants and an aloha shirt. And his name at that time was Robert James Palmer, right? And then he decided, after being with Osho for a while, that he was going to change his name to Robert James Palmer / his mother's name, or
no.
How did no?
He put a Hawaiian middle name, Maikai.
Maikai.
It was Robert Maikai and James Palmer hyphenated for the last name. So he legally did that name change.
Oh, because part of it was his mother, right? So he went James Palmer.
James is his mother's maiden name. That's why he was Robert James Palmer. And so he changed it legally twice. The second time to his sannyas name.
And then, when he came back from taking sannyas, he changed it to Shunyam Nirav. So that was kind of how it went down the line that way. So those are some things you might want to know about him. What else can I tell you about him? He used to play this bass guitar. I don't know if anyone remembers.
Yeah. The one string?
The one string, you know, where you take the garbage can, you turn it over and you put the string on it and boom, 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 like, you know. And then about the time he met me was when he was starting to get into playing the guitar and that he really wanted to play. And then when he met Osho, he really wanted to play in Pune. Oh man, that was his real big thing that he wanted to go for. And it was very hard to play in the satsang. They had the top musicians in there, you know, and it's like you had to kind of get in there, you know, and he hadn't been in there long enough. And finally, through going and spending time there and things like that, he actually ended up playing for Sufi dancing. And so he used to actually bring, you know, Sufi dances. He started writing Sufi dances. And he would do it here and he would do it there, and that was his dream come true.